events like this start to do. They damage our working relationships with each other. I'm seeing signal from the chair to wind up. I'll then take my pause here, Mr. Speaker, and I will resume then after question period my final remarks. Thank you very much.
Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Surrey, Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It has been a long journey to get to yesterday's historic apology for the Kamagata Maru tragedy. Over 9 years ago, I made a statement here urging for the formal apology in the House of Commons. I, along with many Canadians across our nation, including Mr. Sahib Thind and Professor Mohan Singh Memorial Foundation, have fought tirelessly for official recognition of this travesty of justice. Yesterday marked the end of a long journey. The apology delivered by our Prime Minister was not only for the Punjabi community, but for all Canadians. It marks a new era for our country that is founded on respect, dignity, and equality for all. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize two constituents from my riding, Mr. Alan McPhail of Kennington and Mr. Gordon Allen of Fowler's Corners. These men were both awarded by the order of the President of the Republic of France the rank of Knight of the French National Order of the Legion of Honor, the highest honor France awards to foreigners for their involvement in the liberation of France during World War II. These brave soldiers, like so many others, fought to protect our rights and freedoms. Mr. Speaker, my riding has a tradition of supporting and commemorating our military and its history. Just last weekend, I had the pleasure to attend the 100th anniversary of the departure of the 109th Battalion of Victoria and Haliburton counties for the First World War. And the Boys and Girls Club of Kawartha Lakes just completed a series of murals recognizing the lives and stories of Victoria County during those great wars. I would like to conclude by thanking all those who have served, fought, and died to protect our values and beliefs, and thank you to those who are currently serving in the Canadian Armed Forces.
The honourable member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday marked an important moment in the history of this country. It recognized that Canada does not have a perfect history, that we have, on occasion, stumbled and been unjust. It also recognizes the importance of healing wounds, that being an example to the rest of the world must necessarily entail admitting to our own wrongdoings, that we must address head-on when our nation has fallen short of its potential. The Komagata Maru incident was a dark moment in our history that should be a shame to all Canadians and remains deeply painful to Indo-Canadians to this day. But it is also a reflection of how we have changed, opened, and become more tolerant in a Canada that is welcoming to all. To the victims and their descendants, thank you for your patience and the endurance you've shown through this dark episode in our history. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mission, Matsqui, Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in this House today to recognize the Komagata Maru incident. The Komagata Maru arrived in Vancouver in May 1914 and was carrying passengers of mostly Sikh descent. The Government of Canada turned away the boat and they were forced to return to India, a decision which resulted in the deaths of many passengers. We will never forget about the prejudice suffered by Sikh community as a result of this incident. I'm proud that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, on behalf of Government of Canada, has recognized
Order. The honourable member needs to remember, he's a new member, of course, needs to remember that we don't speak of honourable colleagues by names. I think he's referring to the Right Honourable Prime Minister. So I'll let him finish quickly.
I'm proud that Prime Minister, on behalf of the Government of Canada, has recognized this incident and has apologized in the House of Commons. Our country is defined by its diversity. The Komagata Maru serves as a reminder that we must continue to fight against prejudice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Access to justice is a basic democratic right. In the opinion of Alberta Legal Aid President Suzanne Pokolznik, access to justice should be considered an essential service. That must also include access to legal counsel. Yet a growing number of Canadians are forced to represent themselves due to underfunding of legal aid. In Alberta, the demand for legal aid is increasing due to financial downturn and rising unemployment. Many earning less than full-time minimum wage are being denied. Federal support for legal aid has not been increased in almost a decade and has not kept pace with population growth. Federal dollars allocated to Alberta provides a mere 8 days of legal aid. Yet demand for legal aid increased with the imposition of mandatory minimum sentences and tougher immigration laws. Yes, it's reassuring the government has promised to restore the Court Challenges program to protect charter rights, but far deeper financial commitment is urgently needed to ensure every Canadian is accorded equal access to justice.
For Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, the people of Wallaceburg in my riding of Lambton, Kent, Middlesex have enjoyed outstanding health care in their community. Sydenham Hospital and its emergency department have served Wallaceburg, Walpole Island First Nations, and our area for almost 60 years. Recently, the Sydenham Emergency Department was recognized by the Ontario Ministry of Health for its outstanding performance by achieving the greatest reduction in wait times in the province for small rural hospitals. Mr. Speaker, I invite everyone in this great House of Commons to join me in congratulating the Emergency Department physicians, nurses, and support staff at Sydenham Hospital. Thank you for your amazing service.
Honourable member for Don Valley East.
Mr. Speaker, torrential rainfall throughout Sri Lanka has tragically resulted in widespread flooding and landslides. According to the Sri Lanka Disaster Management Centre, over 418,000 people have been affected in 22 of the 25 districts. 41 people have been confirmed dead and 16 are reported missing. Nearly 303,000 people have been displaced. On behalf of all members of the House, I want to offer our sincere condolences and heartfelt sympathy to the people of Sri Lanka during this difficult time. Government of Canada officials are in contact with the High Commissioner of Canada to Sri Lanka and continue to closely monitor the developing situation. Additionally, the Canadian Red Cross is assessing humanitarian needs on the ground. Canada stands ready to provide humanitarian assistance as appropriate. I want to reiterate our sympathies to the people of Sri Lanka at this difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Laval-les-Îles.
Member for Laval-les-Îles.
Of Egypt Air Flight MS-804 traveling from Paris to Cairo. We have also sadly learned that 2 Canadians were among the passengers of this flight. On behalf of the government, and I am sure all members in this House, our thoughts are with the families and loved ones of those lost. The government is providing consular assistance to the families of these 2 Canadians on this flight. Canadian officials are working closely with authorities to confirm whether there are any additional Canadian citizens on this flight and immediately deployed to the airport and government agency to ascertain the facts and provide the most effective support to families. Global Affairs Canada is also working with the French and Egyptian counterparts, as well as other impacted countries, to assess the situation and consider any request for support. Again, Mr. Speaker, we want to express our profound sympathy and condolences to the families and the friends of the victims of this terrible event.
The honourable member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a proud Canadian, a proud Albertan, and a proud resident of Bow River. It's been tough times in these communities, especially in Alberta and some of the communities in my riding. But last week, Chestermere, Strathmore and Brooks, the volunteers, the businesses, the community leaders on very short notice got together and held fundraisers for the toughest of people having a hard time in Fort McMurray. In just a few hours in those 3 communities, they filled truckloads with goods and raised $100,000. Wow. Mr. Speaker, I'm a proud Canadian, a proud Albertan, but I couldn't be prouder than my constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Skyview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was proud to stand as a member of Parliament during the apology in the House of Commons for denying entry to 352 passengers on Kamagata Maru to Canada in 1914. This incident is only one of many where prejudices and fears directly resulted to further injustice, discrimination, and harm to others. I'm proud Sikh, and I'm also proud Canadian. What makes our nation great is that we can have our national pride while practicing our spiritual and cultural beliefs at the same time. This apology is more than redressing one incident. It tells the world that we are a nation that is willing to acknowledge our wrongs and even more than 100 years later apologize for it and make sure we continue to address these problems as they persist in the present day. I thank our government for being committed to ensuring our Canadian values and our
The honourable member for Nepean.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, Salam Alaikum. My honourable colleague from Kitchener Centre joins me in this to share this message. Yesterday marks the closure of a dark chapter in Canadian history. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, on behalf of Government of Canada, apologized for the treatment of those on board the Kamagata Maru. The ship brought people from the pre-independence undivided Indian subcontinent, which today comprises of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. The passengers were predominantly Sikhs, but also included Hindus and Muslims. The reminder of the incidents has strengthened our resolve to be more open and inclusive. The Canadian way of life celebrates diversity. I look forward to welcoming many Sikh, Hindu and Muslim and other religious immigrants, not only from India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, but also from other nations and cultures in the years to come. Canada is strong, not in spite of its differences, but because of it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the Member of Parliament for Calgary Nose Hill and the Canadian delegation at the Women Deliver conference going on in Copenhagen this week. This is the 4th global conference dedicated to the health and human rights of women and girls, and I'm proud of Canada's continued leadership on these issues. 200 million children, Mr. Speaker, have their physical development and wellness affected by acute malnutrition, and tragically 110,000 children die at birth due to anemia. These statistics are as unacceptable as they are disturbing, Mr. Speaker, which is why Canada must continue to play a leadership role. In 2010, due to the leadership of the MP from Calgary Heritage, Canada's Muskoka initiative made children and maternal health a critical development goal for Canada and the G7. The Women Deliver Conference will continue sustainable development based on equality, education, and empowerment for women and girls across the globe. I know that my 9-year-old daughter Molly and girls across Canada expect all girls to have the rights and opportunities they do. This should remain our goal, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brampton North.
Mr. Speaker, nearly 102 years ago, a crowded ship left Hong Kong carrying 376 passengers, most being immigrants of the Punjab region of British India. The Kamagata Maru arrived on the western coast of Canada and was denied the right to dock because of the passengers on board. Mr. Speaker, these 376 Sikhs, Hindus and Muslims were not welcome in Canada due to the country's exclusionary laws, specifically targeted at Indians. That was 1914. Today, it's 2016, and I stand proud with the government that has formally apologized for the Kamagata Maru incident and Canada's historically unfair immigration laws. I'm honored to be a representative in a country that recognizes its historical injustices. It is because of our ability to change that multiculturalism, inclusion, and diversity have become the backbone of Canadian society.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's an honour for me to highlight here in the House the 50th anniversary of the town of Mont-Saint-Hilaire, After celebrating the 100th anniversary of the town's constitution in 2012, this year we're celebrating the amalgamation of the town of Saint-Hilaire-sur-Richelieu and the mountain of Mont-Saint-Hilaire into the municipality we now know. With its nature centre in the heart of the first biosphere recognized by UNESCO in Canada in 1978, famous Quebec artists like Oséas Leduc, Paul-Émile Bordua, and Jordi Bonnet, to name a few, and cultural institutions like La Maison Amérindienne and the Art Gallery, Mont-Saint-Hilaire is a centre for art, heritage, and nature. Allow me to pay tribute to the town's first mayor, Jean-Guy Sénécal, with whom I had the honour of signing the Golden Book at a 50th anniversary celebration on May 2nd. Happy 50th to the people of Mont-Saint-Hilaire. Long may your town live.
Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, we went from sunny ways to a dark week in Parliament. We had altercations on the floor of the House, chaotic scheduling of business without notice, the moving of dilatory motions by the government delaying its own legislation, the closing off of debate on C-14, the first time in history that such measures were used on a moral conscience issue. Then we wake up Wednesday morning to Motion 6, a motion that proposes to legislate by exhaustion, offering unstructured, open-ended debate, potentially sitting 24 hours a day around the clock all summer long. And when the government is satisfied that it has forced enough business, it can bail out without notice and without a vote. Motion 6 targets the opposition and hamstrings its ability to hold the government to account. It disenfranchises the 60.5% of Canadians who voted for those opposition members. Even the 39.5% of Canadians who voted Liberal will not appreciate or be well served by the crippling of the opposition. Motion 6 must be withdrawn from the order of paper and never repeated again.
Banging of desks is not appreciated or permitted here. Let's not have that. The Honourable Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, 102 years ago, my wife's great-grandfather, Narang Singh, embarked on a journey along with 375 other men, women, and children on a ship called the Kamagata Maru. It sailed the open seas to a land that promised hope and opportunity. After months of travel, they saw a coast with land stretching from sea to the sky. But as they got ready to disembark, officers stormed the ship and told them, "Go back to where you came from." They could not understand what law they broke. For months they were given no food or water. They were sent back. Narang Singh was shot and detained, but continued to fight for his rights. His dream never died. Now 4 generations of his family have called this land home. And yesterday, they sat above and they say, "Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister."
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, last night the Prime Minister's temper got the best of him, but his behaviour was just an extension of his government's approach to this House. Increasingly, they treat this House and the voices of Canadians with arrogance and disrespect, and nowhere is that more clear than in Motion 6, which would strip the opposition of all of our tools to hold the government to account. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister put the words of his apology this morning into action and withdraw this offensive motion?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've listened to the comments made by all of our colleagues. I'd like to inform the House that a short while ago we withdrew Motion 6 from the order paper. Our objective, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, our objective remains to work with everyone to find the proper mechanism to extend the sitting hours and allow for a more respectful debate on government legislation, and I look forward to working with all members of this House to achieve that objective.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's a great start to showing all of the members of this House and this House and Canadians that the Prime Minister respects them. But in that spirit, I'm going to ask him, will his government also allow all members who want to speak on the issue of assisted dying, which is a conscious issue, will he give every member the opportunity to speak?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's no secret that we have been trying to extend the hours and allow for more debate on this very important issue. I think all colleagues will agree with the Leader of the Opposition. We recognize the importance and the sensitivity of Bill C-14. It's an issue that touches the lives of many, many Canadians and all parliamentarians, and we will continue to look for the way to extend the debate and allow for every member who wants to speak. But, Mr. Speaker, we also respect the deadline that the Supreme Court of Canada has asked this Parliament to respect, and we think there's a proper way to balance those two interests.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court decision is one decision, but this Parliament also has a voice, and that's the voice of every Canadian. Yes. So, Mr. Speaker, shutting down a debate on a conscious issue is unprecedented. So I'll ask the House Leader again. We know the Prime Minister has shut down debates time and time again, and he continues to treat democracy as an inconvenience. But he has two choices here. He can side with us and side with Canadians and give them a voice. Will he show members of this House and Canadians that he respects them?
Yes. Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we intend to continue to show Parliament and Canadians that we respect the role of members of Parliament, particularly in an issue and a piece of legislation as sensitive and as compelling as medical assistance in dying. But, Mr. Speaker, we also respect the deadline that the Supreme Court imposed on this Parliament, and we have consistently said we think it would be irresponsible to go beyond the deadline the Supreme Court gave this Parliament and not have the appropriate pan-Canadian legislative framework in place. That continues to be our belief.
Député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister lost his temper. We know, and now Canadians also know, that his behaviour wasn't unbecoming of Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister explain, or can one of his representatives explain, why he lost his self-control in the circumstances? Just because things weren't going the way he wanted?
Mr. Speaker, we have heard the concerns of this House on the matter that took place last evening, and we acknowledge those concerns. The members of this House are aware of the fact that our Prime Minister issued an unreserved apology this morning. We look forward to continuing the work of this House in a tone of respect, and I will look forward to working with all my colleagues in this House to further the work of Parliament.
Député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Well, I'd like to thank the member opposite for her reply. We are all very interested in Bill C-14. Our fellow citizens sent us here to debate these issues that affect Canadians. The work done by members of the opposition is important. We put forth a dissenting report. We need to continue to work farther. Will the government allow people to speak who want to participate in this debate and to represent Canadians?
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, we have the intention, and as we have since the beginning, the desire to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak to Bill C-14. However, we also acknowledge that the Supreme Court has imposed upon the government and on Parliament a deadline. That is coming quickly. It's June 6th. We believe that it's important to balance the needs to hear from all members, but also to respect the Supreme Court of Canada and to have a balanced legislation in place by that date. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy to hear that the government has finally listened to reason and withdrawn Motion 6. That was nothing more than a parliamentary straitjacket. But that's not all that will make a difference to the climate here. There are very repetitive muzzle orders that have been used in recent weeks, repetitively, and they were not justified. Will the Prime Minister also stop the abusive use of time allocation here so that members have an opportunity to speak. The Honourable Government House Leader. As I said to Mr. Speaker a few moments ago, we withdrew motion 6 from the notice paper. We are seeking opportunities to work with our colleagues on all sides in order to extend hours of debate in a respectful tone, to allow Parliament to consider important pieces of legislation put forth by our government. We're also aware that we have obligations, commitments to Canadians. We must legislate in a climate of respect and work with all parties on these measures.
I'm glad they've finally taken back motion 6, Mr. Speaker. That was the most draconian power grab that any government has ever attempted in Canadian history. And it is good that they have pushed that back. But there are other ways that this government can finally start working with opposition parties. They can stop the rush to closure. They can actually provide calendars so we know what is being debated day to day. They can stop changing the order paper at the last minute. Will the government finally start working with opposition parties in this Parliament?
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we have consistently tried to work constructively with all members of this House. We agree with the colleagues across the way that it's important to have more respectful debate on legislation and on motions. We also agree with my colleague from New Westminster that certainty and predictability, as he just referenced in terms of the order paper, are important parts of respectful parliamentary debate. So we'll continue to work with all members, Mr. Speaker, to improve these issues, but we'll also be conscious of the commitments we made to Canadians and the important legislation we have before this House, and it's our intention to find the appropriate way to pass it.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga.
Here's the reality. Here's what's been happening. By their own actions, this government showed a deep disrespect for Parliament this week. There are serious and substantial issues before the House, but Liberals are shutting down debate and stripping the ability of MPs to hold them to account. Mr. Speaker, whether they voted for a government or an opposition member, Canadians want their voices heard. So when exactly did the Liberals decide to turn their back on sunny ways in favour of these strong-arm tactics?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my colleague on the other side of the aisle that it's important to have more respectful debate in Parliament. I hope she will agree with me that, particularly with respect to Bill C-14, medical assistance in dying, we have tried on numerous occasions to allow the House to continue for extended hours so that all members of Parliament can be heard on this important issue. We'll continue to urge the House to do that, Mr. Speaker, but we're also conscious of the deadline that the Supreme Court imposed on Parliament, and we think it's important to have the appropriate, balanced legislative framework in place by that deadline.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. They're singing the same old song as a previous Conservative government, Mr. Speaker, and they're going even farther. They want to give themselves all of the powers to push through their bills that are full of problems, forcing us to accept the loss of 2,400 jobs at Avios, even though it's against the law, forcing us to accept their solution to medical assistance in dying, even if it runs counter to the Supreme Court decision. When did the Liberals decide to go from sunny ways to these strong-armed approaches? Mr. Speaker, it won't surprise anyone here that I don't share the views of my colleague opposite, but I do agree with her, however, that we need to encourage more respectful debate in this House on all important bills that the government has introduced in Parliament, following the commitments that we made to Canadians during the last election campaign. We are going to continue, as we have in the past, to continue to work with everyone to achieve an appropriate outcome.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition comes to this House to represent the 60% of Canadians that don't support the Liberals. Now, in the past few days, the Liberals have been pulling their own fire alarm to prevent MPs from doing the work. They tried to punish us for their mistake by bringing in motion number 6. We appreciate the fact that they've now announced that they're withdrawing that. But I do note that they're only withdrawing it after the massive backlash from not only opposition parties, but Canadians and even their friends in the media. He's withdrawn this anti-democratic motion to rig the rules of the House. Will he now withdraw his anti-democratic attempts to rig the voting system by changes to the electoral?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker,
we all agree that our democratic institutions must evolve. We all agree that, as the honourable leader of the opposition just said, that we represent the voices of the Canadians who brought us to this place. We need to take responsibility for this privilege and work together to ensure that the changes we bring forward are relevant to the 21st century and include the voices of those who don't normally engage in this process.
For Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, they need to take responsibility for the bizarre actions of this Liberal government over the past few days. Motion number 6 was a glimpse into the mind of a Prime Minister when he doesn't get his way. Canadians have every reason to be worried about what they plan to do with Canadians' voting system. Will the government commit to dropping their attempts to rig the system and promise Canadians a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I do not accept the premise that this process has failed before it's even begun. We need to work together to find common ground. We need to ensure that the voices of those Canadians who brought us to this place are reflected in the conversation. I urge all members to bring their ideas forward and to help strengthen this process and our democratic institutions.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government decided to withdraw Motion 6. That is a good thing. Bravo. The government has also said that it will allow for a good debate on C-14. Bravo. But with respect to aid, medical assistance in dying on two occasions, two members of the government side stood up to put an end to second reading, and that is completely unacceptable. The government leader of the House is an honourable man. Can he give us his honourable word that all members will have an opportunity to speak and that no one on the government benches will stand up to try to interrupt debate? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for his question. As I said, we respect the need, and it's a desire of all members to have an opportunity to rise to speak on the bill concerning medical assistance in dying, and that includes our colleagues who sit in the Senate. However, we are facing a deadline imposed upon us by the Supreme Court. We did not choose it. It's something that we will try to respect. We will try to work with everyone to find the appropriate balance. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, that wasn't my question. Will the government House Leader stand up and give his word that no government official on that side will stand up to interrupt the debate at second reading, third reading with respect to medical assistance in dying? Yes or no? I ask him to give us his word that no one will interrupt the debate. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the member opposite will agree with me that we tried on many occasions to find a way to extend hours of debate. I had even proposed or moved the same motion as the member for Regina Capel. However, it wasn't adopted in the House, and we will sit down and work together with everyone to ensure that a maximum amount of debate can take place on Bill C-14. However, we will respect the Supreme Court and the decision that Supreme Court imposed on Canada.
Almost a new era of respect for Parliament. Instead, after just 6 months, we have them shutting down debate for the first time in our history on a end-of-life conscience matter. They tried to rig the rules of this place to the government's total advantage through Motion 6. We commend them for withdrawing that. But now we know that they're trying to rig the very system that elects members to this place. The minister just said that we need to hear the voices of those Canadians who brought us to this place. Those were 17.5 million voices that will be excluded by her closed, Liberal-controlled parliamentary process. Why won't this government really demonstrate a commitment to democratic reform through a referendum?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, as the Honourable Leader of the Opposition said in her remarks at the beginning of question period today, we represent the voice of every Canadian. And I would urge my colleagues in this House to move beyond the repetitive questions asked every day Let's engage in a productive exchange of ideas. Let's work together and seize this historic opportunity to bring our electoral system into the 21st century.
The honourable member for Calgary-Menda Park.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I invite the minister to move beyond her repetitive non-answers, beyond her refusal to allow the Canadian people to decide the manner by which they elect their representatives. This minister stands up and pretends that a few hundred witnesses at a committee are more inclusive than a referendum that could produce 17 million or more voters. Mr. Speaker, what doesn't she understand about this? This is a simple question of the legitimacy of this place. Does the government really think that Canadians will accept a rigged system chosen by and for the Liberal Party of Canada?
Mr. Democratic Institution.
Mr. Speaker, as I've mentioned, we have not decided on a system yet. We've simply taken the first step in fulfilling our promise to the Canadians, over 60% of whom said our democratic institutions need to be modernized, need to be strengthened, need to be more relevant. We took that first step a week and a day ago. We introduced a motion to bring together an all-party parliamentary committee. We did that, and we look forward to working with all members and not prejudging the outcome of that work.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After having boasted about Quebec's nonpartisan approach to medical assistance in dying, the Liberal government is doing exactly the opposite. It's stifling debate, refusing to listen to constitutional experts, rejecting the most significant amendments being proposed by the opposition. Even the Alberta Court of Appeal contradicted the government. Bill C-15 does not comply with Carter. How can the Liberals go ahead with a bill that may well face a challenge as soon as it's adopted?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question, and I agree with her that it is very important that we move ahead. The Supreme Court has made it clear to us that Canadians have a right to medical assistance in dying. We have seen even this week by the decision that was made in Alberta at a court of appeal that in fact it's very important that a regulatory framework be put in place so that this assistance can be provided safely. Thank you.
For Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, legislation on medical assistance in dying is a difficult, sensitive issue. Canadians have legitimate and heartfelt concerns, and all of us in this place share our responsibility to get this right. So it has been so disappointing to see the government's approach. They rejected an all-party committee report, ignored testimony about the unconstitutional nature of the bill, and rejected amendments that would fix that. And all the while, they falsely claim that everything is the opposition's fault. Mr. Speaker, will the government drop the strong-arm tactics and work with us to fix this deeply flawed bill?
Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague across the way. As has been said many times, this is a deeply complex and personal issue. We have been working incredibly hard with all members in this House to have detailed discussions to ensure that we comply with the Supreme Court of Canada's deadline, to ensure that we have in place a legal framework for medical assistance in dying in this country, a framework that will ensure that there's balance between personal autonomy and protections of the vulnerable. We need to have a system in place by June the 6th to ensure that there are safeguards in place around medical assistance in dying in this country.
Member for Banff Airdrie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it seems that sunny ways of cookie turned into sunny, get the bleep out of my way. that elbows up approach is the approach that the Prime Minister took yesterday in this Parliament. But it also seems to be the approach he's taking to voting reform. He's trying to rig the next election in the Liberals' favour. Is the Prime Minister really so arrogant that he thinks he can impose his will on Canadians without giving them a say in a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we have not decided on a system yet. We have put forward a committee to study a wide range of electoral reform options, including proportional representation and alternative voting, including online voting and mandatory voting, That process has just begun, and we need to work together to ensure that the voices of Canadians are included in that conversation, and we use the tools available to us in the 21st century to do that in the most meaningful and inclusive way possible.
For Banff Airdrie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberal arrogance knows no bounds. It's quite evident that the Prime Minister has absolutely no respect for this place and for the democracy that it represents. The Liberals are trying to ram through electoral reform just like they tried to ram through the opposition yesterday. Does the Prime Minister think that he can also manhandle democracy, or will he let Canadians have a say in a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, what is clear is that we all agree that the status quo must end. Mr. Speaker, over 60% of Canadians voted for change. They voted for parties.
Order. If members disagree, they get a chance to say so. Let's each have our turn. Let's listen. Yesterday, the member for Elgin, Middlesex, London, as I left the chamber, was kind enough to offer me a bottle of headache medicine, and I just asked her to keep it on standby. And that people did wish.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, on Monday, we learned on Twitter that even the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister acknowledged that a referendum wasn't a bad tool for consultation. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister and the Prime Minister respect the opinions of 62% of Canadians who didn't vote for them, set aside partisanship on such a fundamental issue, and tell us if they're rejecting the idea of a referendum simply because it's a good proposal from the Conservatives?
The Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I have some headache medicine in my desk, should you wish to have any. Mr. Speaker, democracy is more than just about voting. Democracy about ensuring that the voices of those who are normally engaged in the process are included to ensure that we are the strongest that we can be. Mr. Speaker, in the past, we have extended the right to vote to women and to Indigenous persons, and it's been conservative governments, progressive conservative governments who have done this. This was the right thing to do. It came to this House. The members took responsibility and brought forward the changes necessary. We need to demonstrate the same leadership.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, if the Minister asks why the questions are so repetitive, it's because the answers are unsatisfactory. We aren't the only ones to believe that a referendum is a good idea. Canadians and the media are also questioning the procedure put in place by the Liberal government. Yesterday, a reputable journalist from the Toronto Star said, and I quote, "The Minister is burning bridges instead of building them. The Liberal proposal is untenable." Mr. Speaker, will the Minister acknowledge that a referendum is the best way of respectfully consulting all Canadians?
Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Speaker, is a referendum a tool, a means to engaging Canadians? Yes. But is it the best tool? It is not the best tool. During previous referenda in Ontario and in BC, nearly 50% of the population did not participate. Is that okay? Is that okay, Mr. Speaker? We need to work together, and we need to work harder to ensure that our democratic institutions are inclusive and the systemic barriers that exist today are addressed by all 338 members of this House.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil, Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Heritage said about the sale of Montreal CBC headquarters, and I quote, "I now expect CBC Lanscan to take the next steps in the process in a transparent manner." And yesterday, we didn't learn anything from the board, nothing on the costs, the size, the number of studios, anything. And this is a board of directors that is partisan, conservative. And there's also a problem because one of the companies that could be involved in this is mostly known for the fiasco of the Îlot Voyageur in Montreal, which cost taxpayers millions of dollars. Will the Minister ensure that all the details are made public? Isn't that the least she can do? The Honourable Minister for Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our public broadcaster is finally focused on the future. We've reinvested in Radio-Canada CBC, and we have also ensured that CBC Radio-Canada has two good scenarios that its board is looking at. I've heard my questions, my colleagues' questions about the appointments to the CBC board, and in the coming weeks I will have the opportunity to show a new independent process to appoint members to the CBC board so that we can have good administrators. And that having been said, I would like to remind my colleague that CBC's board is independent. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, the Official Languages Commissioner's official report, as tabled today, shows once again violations of the Official Languages Act, and it shows that they're the norm. And we saw a great example of that this week. Energy East presented its request to the NEB in English only. That's just not acceptable. How can the Minister of Heritage, who is apparently supposedly also responsible for official languages, justify that Francophones are going to have to wait 1 month longer than anyone else to have access to the documents in their own language? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll thank my colleague for the question. The question of bilingualism in official languages is a priority for our government, and I can assure you that in the context of the Energy East file, that the official languages law will be respected and that both official languages be promoted. I will work with my colleague at Natural Resources to ensure that this is done. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Gatineau. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Parliamentary Budget Officer noted that there were a number of positive points in the details in the recent Supplementary Estimates A budget. Can the President of the Treasury Board please discuss his reaction to this report? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. The last report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer just confirmed that the government is making important progress to present its spending plans in a more transparent and timely manner to Parliament.
PBO said that, quote, these important improvements will enhance parliamentarians' financial scrutiny. Our government has and is raising the bar on openness, transparency and accountability to Parliament.
Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister misled Canadians on 3 separate occasions when he said he consulted.
Order, order. Members seem to be heckling their own side here. Let's have order. The open member for Lethbridge has the floor. Let's hear her question.
The Prime Minister misled Canadians on 3 separate occasions when he said that he consulted the opposition on electoral reform. Yet he says, Canadians, trust me, I'll design an electoral system that's ideal for Canada. The Prime Minister's failure of leadership this week shows why Canadians need to make their very own decision with regards to how they vote. A referendum is absolutely the only safeguard that Canadians have against this tyrannical Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister so afraid to hold a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, in this House, every single vote has an equal weight. What this Prime Minister committed to was bringing together a committee made up of parliamentarians to study and review possible electoral reform options, including online voting and mandatory voting. Mr. Speaker, the final decision will come to this House, where every member has an equal voice and an equal vote.
Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's unstable leadership has been on absolutely full display this week for us. Whether it be misleading Canadians about his made-up consultations with the opposition or his absolutely bizarre behaviour last night, the Prime Minister is out of control. Will he do us all a favour and take a remedial course in civics and perhaps learn the basics of democracy? Will he also do the right thing and give Canadians the final say in how governments are elected? And will the Prime Minister respect the voices of each and every Canadian by holding a referendum? Yes or no?
Yes. Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, our Prime Minister did the right thing and apologized sincerely and wholeheartedly. Let's accept that. For those who are interested in reforming our electoral system, let's work together. I know many of you have many members in this House have great ideas, and they cannot wait to share them. please bring them forward so that we can ensure that the modernization that needs to occur occurs with the best ideas and the most inclusive approach possible.
The member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today's Toronto Star says the minister's handling of the electoral reform file is, and I quote, asinine, disingenuous, and discredited. The Star also reports that, quote, she is prone to explanations that defy logic. Those are the Star's words, not mine. So here's the minister's chance to turn things around by actually giving a straightforward answer, which includes a yes or a no, to a straightforward question. Will this Liberal government hold a referendum to give Canadians a veto on its plans to change our electoral system?
Democratic institutions.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps that is the flaw in this process. Electoral reform is neither simple or easy to address. It's a complex question with many underlying factors and many consequences. We need to work together to ensure that we answer those questions effectively, that the best ideas are brought forward, and the voices of those who don't normally have an opportunity to be included in this conversation are included in this conversation.
Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
That's peachy. They can all do that on Twitter. But in the meantime, there should be a referendum at the end of the process to include all 35 Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the minister has actually argued that her ongoing Twitter consultations are more inclusive than a referendum. She's actually said that. But if she actually reads some of the responses she's received on Twitter, she'll see there aren't many who think it's okay to rig the 2019 election. In fact, she will find what the media characterizes as a groundswell of opposition to her chosen process. Given the minister's deep admiration for Twitter consultations, will she respect the wishes of those who are writing to her, and will she hold the referendum that they are requesting?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, in the 21st century, we have the technology available to us that did not exist even 10 years ago. We have the capacity and indeed the responsibility to take advantage and to leverage these tools and ensure that the 19th century model we are currently operating under is improved and enhanced and brought into the 21st century.
All day long, members have been calling for respect for this place and for each other, and I expect members to show that respect. The honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, I am concerned that the Liberals will fail to provide sufficient resources to Parks Canada to address the anticipated increase in visitors next year, but they are definitely failing to address the state of accessibility within our parks today for those with disabilities. Accessible infrastructure has declined, all-terrain vehicles have disappeared, and the maintenance and upkeep of trails and facilities has fallen off. These parks belong to all of us. Will the government step up and ensure that our national parks are accessible for all Canadians, including those with disabilities?
Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. I'm particularly excited that the very first priority in my mandate letter is to engage in a consultation process that will lead to federal accessibility legislation. I just met this morning, Mr. Speaker, with the Trans-Canada Trail executives, and I'm excited to be working with them to make sure that our parks and our trails are accessible. Thank you.
Here. For Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been 5 years since Canada signed the UN Convention for the Rights of Persons Living with Disabilities. We still see barriers for people living with disabilities. It's not been fully implemented. Education, accessible housing, employment. This Liberal government promised to form a Persons with Disabilities Act, and now we need to see some action. When is this going to happen? We've had no word, absolutely no word yet, and it is very important.
The Honourable Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities.
I thank the honourable member once again for her question. Mr. Speaker, I'm working with stakeholders from a variety of disability groups as we design an inclusive and engaging consultation process that will lead to federal accessibility legislation. that will include access issues on a variety of federal areas of federal jurisdiction. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to do this so we can help Canadians with disabilities have access to federal services, programs, and policies, and they don't have to wait to be discriminated against. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is showing pure hypocrisy when it comes to Veterans Affairs. He solemnly promised to never force veterans to fight the government in court. But now in government, well, he's changed his mind. The Prime Minister is not showing respect to veterans or to members of this House. Can he confirm right now that he will keep his word and drop the Equitas legal challenge? Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
I find it ironic, Mr. Speaker, that this member opposite can stand and accuse this government of anything. This came about because of years of neglect by the former government on this file. We are delivering $5.6 billion in financial security to veterans and their families. We have an aggressive mandate from our Prime Minister to do things better than the former government, and this includes a return to an option for a lifelong pension.
Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, the truth is very clear. The Prime Minister misled veterans in the last election. Our Conservative government always did what it said it was going to do, and it never made any false promises or gave false hope. Canada needs a respectful leader, a coherent leader, and not a schoolchild who manhandles his colleagues. Can the Prime Minister finally show leadership and end the fight against our veterans in the Equitas Challenge? The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
To be clear about the record, here's what the former government did. They cut 800 frontline support staff workers that worked with our veterans. They closed 9 offices. They ignored veterans for 10 long years. We are not doing that on this side of this House. We are delivering in this budget $5.6 billion in financial security to those men and women who have served and who need our support. We will continue to do this and implement our mandate letter, and you will see veterans and their families are going to do much better under our government than the former.
I think he means they will see or he will see. The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Chief Government Whip. When is that member going to stand up against the arrogance of his government and stop driving injured veterans into court? Mr. Speaker, in the last election, the Whip made a solemn vow to veterans to bring back lifetime pensions, full tuition payments, and a range of promises that the new government has already broken, Mr. Speaker. When will the Chief Government Whip, a retired Canadian Armed Forces general, stand up and live up to the promises he made to our veterans?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is acting aggressively on a mandate letter given by our Prime Minister. Budget 2016, we moved $5.6 billion in financial benefits to those men and women who needed our help and support. That was expanding our earning loss benefit, improving access to the Career Impact Allowance, and making the Disability Award more generous. We're delivering for veterans, and we will continue to do so. And it's really above the height of hypocrisy, these questions regarding this file from the former government.
Honourable Member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, this past Sunday, I had the opportunity to speak at the Lyme Disease Federal Framework Conference on behalf of New Brunswick Southwest constituents impacted by Lyme disease. Listening to those impacted and the experts, it is clear we need more data on the devastating effects of Lyme disease across Canada. Given that our government is committed to science and data, can the Minister of Health inform this House about the government's next steps so that we can have better services and treatments for Lyme disease? Thank you.
On behalf of people affected by Lyme disease. As a physician myself, I understand the impact Lyme disease has on Canadians and their families. That's why I was so pleased to see over 700 Canadians participating in our 3-day conference this week on Lyme disease. We heard from patients about the need for better surveillance, enhanced awareness, and increased investment in research, all of which will inform the federal framework that we will develop while working closely with our partners and stakeholders. Thank you.
Member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals were so concerned with the refugee numbers that they have forgotten the people themselves. because the Liberals have failed to support Syrian refugees, once they arrive, many of them are using food banks while making the transition to Canada. How could the minister have been so arrogant to suggest that it is a Syrian cultural value to depend on food banks? Thank you.
Mr. Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for that question. And as we know, many Canadians who have tight budgets use food banks. I have stated that my comments on that issue were insensitive. I regretted them, and so I repeat that in the House. But I would also say that by my actions, I think I have shown myself unequivocally welcoming to all of our Syrian refugees.
Jonquière. Honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, if I told you that a company hadn't paid its employees for months, you would say that's unacceptable, no? And yet that's what's happening to employees of the federal government. Since a new pay system was put in place, many employees haven't received their salary for months. There's even an employee at Service Canada on maternity leave who hasn't received anything for 3 months. 3 months, Mr. Speaker. 3 months without any pay. What will the government do to ensure that those who are affected can feed their families?
Mr. Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for her question. Phoenix is a new pay system that's replacing a 40-year-old system. Yes, there are some glitches to be expected, but we are working very closely to make sure that every employee who deserves to be paid and every employee deserves to be paid is paid on time. Unfortunately, there are issues that we're trying to resolve. We're doing that. We're putting extra resources into the system to respond to it. To date, we have had 1.4 million transactions. Of that, we have 77 outstanding issues, and we're working very hard to deliver for all of our employees who deserve to be paid for the work that they performed.
Well, member for Pontiac.
I met today with a group of paddlers who are joining me on a 4-day canoe trip down the Des Moines River, a renowned wilderness destination. The Algonquin Anishinaabe called it the Ikonakwasi Sipi, and it's located on their traditional territory. Located 2 hours west of Parliament, at the edge of our Pontiac riding, and flowing into the Ottawa River, the Des Moines watershed contains some of the one of the largest areas of unfragmented southern boreal forest in Quebec. Would the Minister of Small Business and Tourism please tell this House how the government is helping ecotourism and the conservation economy succeed across Canada?
Here, Speaker. The Honourable Member for Grand Prairie Mackenzie. Oh, excuse me, pardon me. The Honourable Minister of Small Business and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable member from Pontiac for the question. Our government is investing more than $40 million to develop national parks and marine conservation areas, nearly $17 million to expand the Learn to Camp program, develop new programming to tell Canada's stories, and encourage Indigenous storytelling and ecotourism opportunities. And of course, marking Canada 150 by making admission to our national parks, conservation areas, and historical sites free of charge. I'd like to commend the honourable member for coordinating the paddle on the Ottawa River event for June 4th in conjunction with Tourism Pontiac and Paddle Canada. All members and their constituents are welcome to attend. Thank you, Mr.
Member for Grand Prairie Mackenzie.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. A month ago, the Minister of Agriculture committed to extend the provisions of the Fair Rail for Grain Farmers Act. Unfortunately, up until now, we haven't heard a single thing since that announcement. People are starting to believe that this is just another broken promise by the Liberals. I'm wondering if the Ag Minister will stand right now and commit to extending these provisions immediately.
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's concern, and I can assure him this issue will be addressed in a proper form to take care that the grain is delivered to the ports to make sure that our exports are kept in line. We will make sure that we supply the transportation for the Canadian farmer.
Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, the people of Lac Mégantic were victims of a rail disaster 3 years ago, and they are still waiting for a rail bypass so that they can rebuild their city in all full security. And the solutions suggested by the company are unacceptable, either maintaining the railway through downtown or a bypass whose construction would take 10 years, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister committed to putting in place a bypass. He even signed the petition in favor of that. Will he honor his word and work to ensure that this bypass is put in place as quickly as possible. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The government is committed to enhancing rail safety, and in Budget 2016, we are investing $143 million to rail safety and the transportation of dangerous goods. However, it is premature for comments on funding for a rail bypass before the study is completed. The Minister was honoured to meet citizens of the town recently to hear their stories firsthand, and he knows that the Municipal Council and residents of Lac-Mégantic have an interest in relocating the rails away from the centre of town. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois is happy to see Motion 6 withdrawn. Now, turning to the medically assisted dying bill, the government says that it's ready to hear members, but is it ready to listen to them? The criteria concerning a reasonably foreseeable death do not respect the Carter decision. Is the government ready to support the Bloc Québécois amendment, which would delete this criteria, which creates discrimination? And is it willing to get rid of inhuman admissibility conditions?
Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank my honourable colleague across the way for his question and for his substantive engagement in the discussion around Bill C-14. We are confident that we have put forward and made a public policy decision around medical assistance in dying in this country. This is a transformative piece of legislation that we have engaged with many Canadians and many members within this House. We look forward to the continued discussion. We look forward to ensuring that we reach our deadline of June the 6th. So we have a legislative framework in place for medical assistance in dying that is balanced and that speaks to this transformative piece or period of time that we're in.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Dr. Helena Jaczek, Minister of Community and Social Services for the Province of Ontario. Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Now, that will conclude question period for today.
Orders of the day. Resuming debate on the question of privilege raised by Mr. Van Loan regarding physical molestation of the member for Berthier-Maskinongé.
When, for a question period, the member for Saskatoon University was doing his speech, and there are 5 minutes remaining in his speech. The honourable member for Saskatoon University. No, he's finished. So questions and comments. Not seeing any. Resuming debate. The honourable member for Niagara Falls. Resuming debate. Is the House ready for the question? The question is as follows. Mr. Lamoureux, seconded by Mr. Vaughan, moved that the question be now put. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed and so ordered. Adopté.
Carried.
The next question is as follows. Mr. Van Loan, seconded by Ms. Ashton. No, excuse me. Excuse me. Orders of the day.
Orders of the day.
Well, hold it. The honourable member of Regina Capella, I think, is rising to assist the chair.
Far be it for me to backseat drive here, Mr. Speaker. I think what we just disposed with was the motion, the question being now put, and now we will need to put the question, and I think members are ready for that.
It's a fine idea. I thank the member for his assistance. As I was saying, the next question is as follows. Mr. Van Loan, seconded by Ms. Ashton, moved that the matter of the physical molestation of the honourable member for Berthier-Masconanger be now referred to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed and so ordered. Orders of the day.
Government bills, comments, consideration at the report stage of Bill C2, an act to amend the Income Tax Act.
Madame Le Boutillier for Mr. Morneau. Haidu moves that Bill C2, an act to amend the Income Tax Act, be concurred in at report stage. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Okay. On division? Carried on division. Okay. When should the bill be read a third time? Now. Madame Le Boutillier for Mr. Morneau, seconded by Ms. Haidu, moves that Bill C2, an act to amend the Income Tax Act, be now read a third time and do pass. Debate. The Honourable Parliamentary
Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a great pleasure for me today to speak on Bill C2. A bill that will reduce taxes for the middle class. As you know,